A surprise for Edward. Gordon pulled into Knapford Station with the morning express, feeling very miserable. After hearing the story of Edward's horrific accident, he couldn't help but feel guilty for constantly teasing him for being old and unreliable. Sir Topham Hatt was standing on the station platform when Gordon arrived. "What's the matter?" he asked. "You seem to be in a sad mood." "It's nothing, sir," said Gordon sadly. "I just woke up on the wrong side of the shed this morning, that's all." Sir Topham Hatt brushed it off. "Very well, Gordon, carry on." Soon the passengers were all on board. The conductor blew his whistle, and Gordon puffed out of the station with the express, feeling very sad. Meanwhile, Thomas was at Elsbridge Station waiting for Henry to arrive with his local passenger train. He was still thinking about Edward's accident when Henry arrived. "Hello, Thomas," said Henry. "Are you still thinking about what happened to Edward?" "Indeed," replied Thomas. He was feeling very miserable as he left Tidmouth Sheds to work on his branch line. "I've never seen an engine feeling so sad. I want to cheer him up and make him feel better, but I don't know how." Henry felt sorry for Thomas. "I know how you feel," he said to the blue tank engine. "I want to cheer him up as much as all the other engines. I'm sure we'll find a way to make Edward feel better." "I hope so," said Thomas. Later that evening, Gordon was making his way back to Tidmouth Sheds. He had just finished taking his last train of the day and was looking forward to resting his wheels. He was still thinking about Edward when he heard a whoosh of steam. "That sounds like a steam engine," Gordon remarked. He looked all around him, but he couldn't find where the steam was coming from. Then he heard it again. "Who's there?" he asked. A voice replied from an old siding nearby. "Hello? Are you one of Sir Topham Hatt's engines?" "Yes," answered Gordon, "and a very proud one, too. Who are you?" "There's no time to explain. You need to get me to safety." Gordon was surprised. "What are you doing here?" he asked. "Escaping." "From what?" "Scrap." Gordon shuddered at the thought. "Don't worry," he said assuringly. "I'm going to take you to a safe place where you can meet new friends, work hard, and become a really useful engine." And with that, Gordon rolled onto the siding, buffered up to the engine, and took it straight to the works. It was a long way, but Gordon was determined to save the engine from being scrapped. At last, they arrived at the works safe and sound. The engine was very relieved, and Gordon headed home, feeling very pleased with himself. The next morning, Sir Topham Hatt arrived at Tidmouth Sheds. He had some exciting news for all the engines. "There's a new engine on Sodor today," he said. "He will be working with Edward on his branch line." The engines were curious to find out who the new engine was. Just then, the engine arrived at the sheds and stopped alongside Sir Topham Hatt. Edward gasped. "Engines?" said Sir Topham Hatt. "This is—" "Eagle!" remarked Edward. "Edward?" replied Eagle. "Is that you?" "It sure is," said Edward. "This engine was saved from scrap," said Sir Topham Hatt. "All thanks to Gordon." Edward couldn't believe it. "Gordon?" he remarked. "You saved him?" "I did indeed," said Gordon proudly. "I couldn't let an engine like him be sent to the scrapyard. That would be very undignified." Edward was so happy he thought his boiler would burst. "Thank you, Gordon. You don't know how much this means to me." "You're welcome," replied Gordon. "I'm sorry for teasing you all these years for being old and unreliable," he added. "It's all right, Gordon. I'll always forgive you," said Edward happily, and he set off to work on his branch line with his old friend Eagle. Later that evening, Eagle was at Tidmouth Sheds after a hard day's work when Gordon returned. "Thank you for saving me," he said. "If it wasn't for you, I would have been scrapped a long time ago." "It's what good friends do," said Gordon, and together They fell happily asleep.